Bottomley, and I want to welcome you to the first video in my new video series called Jazzstick, which is some explorations into how to play jazz on the Chapman Stick, some of my concepts and ideas, and some of the traditions of jazz and how they apply to the stick. And the first thing I want to talk to you about really quickly is your ears. There's nothing more important to playing any kind of music than the ears, and that's really true of jazz. Jazz is a language. You have to do a lot of ear training. You should be able to hear the chord tones, sing the chord tones, hear the passing tones, hear the chord voicings, all that kind of stuff. Transcribe solos. And then the other part of that is rhythm and groove, and that's part of the ears as well. And you have to really practice and make sure that your groove is solid and that you can play, on the beat, behind the beat, in front of the beat, on top of the beat, as they say. Any of that stuff, it's really got to be worked on. And jazz is a lifelong commitment if you want to play, and it's a wonderful, wonderful way to live because you'll learn new things every day. And if you're not humbled every day by music, you're just not trying hard enough. So, a quick announcement: if you would like to study with me starting in 2016, this year, I will be offering Skype lessons to people who really want to study jazz, really specifically jazz on the Chapman Stick. And right near me or below me should be appearing my email address right about now, which you can use to contact me, and we'll try to set up some Skype lessons, and we'll see where you're at and where you want to go, and if it's a good fit to have me to help guide you along. I've got some unique perspectives, but we will see. And speaking of jazz and the stick, I have to mention a few people who have already blazed some of this trail. Although I think that we still have a long way to go to integrate the Chapman Stick into jazz. We'll talk about that in a second. First of all, the creator, Emmett Chapman. He really started as a jazz musician, and he was fantastic. Listen to Parallel Galaxies, some great jazz on there. Probably the name that comes to mind right after Emmett's is Steve Adelson, a fantastic jazz Chapman Stick player. Also, Frank Joliffe was a great, great jazz stick player. He just passed away. Definitely worth checking out if you can find his recordings. And of course, guys like Bob Culbertson and Greg Howard play great jazz on the stick. So definitely check them out, man, because they play some great, great stuff. And that's what jazz is all about, is listening and trying to play from your heart and your head, but really check it out as much as you can. Now, the first thing you got to decide if you want to play jazz Chapman Stick is what role you want to play. And the big question always is do you want to take the bass role, or do you not want to take the bass role? Most guys, like myself, Steve Adelson and Frank Joliffe, we said, yeah, man, we want to play the bass role. And what you're really becoming is more like a jazz hymn and organ player. And the guys who are playing left-hand bass or walking bass with their feet, and then comping with the right hand and soloing with the right hand. So that's kind of the role we're doing, and there's no easy way about it. There are ways of approaching it which will help you in the long run, and we'll talk about some of those. Some of those are really, Steve Adelson has done a fantastic job of integrating how to play jazz on the stick, and we'll touch upon some of his brilliant ideas, and plus some ideas of my own on how to do that. And if that's the role you want to take, and you want to learn jazz, you really have to get into the tradition. If you want to be able to go to a jazz jam session and sit in with a bunch of guys, and you walk in with your stick and you ask the upright player to sit down, you better be pretty solid with your bass playing, which is what this first segment is really going to be about. It's going to be about playing walking bass, Latin grooves. I'm not going to get into Latin today, but Latin grooves will come, and then soloing while you're doing that, comping while you're doing that, and kind of a concept that I have. We're going to hit upon about how to do this, because it seems to be a mystery for some people, but it really shouldn't be, because it's all music, and you can do it. So the first thing I want to do is I'm going to switch over to the upright for a minute, an instrument which I haven't practiced in 15 years. I've been playing the Chapman Stick. So I'm going to switch over to that so we can just explore a little bit about what the upright bass does in jazz and how it can relate to what we're trying to do on the Chapman Stick. There it is. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is apologize for my intonation on there. I haven't played the upright bass in 15 years, and it's not an instrument which you could put down for 15 years to be able to pick up and have great intonation on. So, and I'm a stick player now, so I'm not really planning on doing that. It'd be fun maybe when I retire to pick that up and do some orchestral stuff, get my intonation back that way. But that wasn't the point. The point of showing that was showing that for upright bass players, whether you're soloing or you're walking, you're doing a lot of shifting. And the reason for that is the distance between the notes. You have to do the same thing on the Chapman Stick for a different reason. The reason on the stick is because it's tuned in fifths. So if you want to play walking bass lines, scale type things with passing tones, you've got to shift. If you want to play melodic things on the bass side, you've got to be able to shift. You've got to be able to feel comfortable doing that. And we're going to talk a little bit now about what that's all about and how I kind of develop independence with soloing or comping and walking at the same time. So we'll take this in segments. Okay, so bass side scales. I've been using the B-flat blues for this and this demonstration, and I'll do the same thing. I'll continue with that now because I think it's a great example of some of the scale shapes in the bass side. So the first scale you need to know is the B-flat mixolydian. Really have to be able to see that. Be able to play it in different ways. That's where I'm shifting with the first finger. And here's where I'm playing it with kind of the traditional upright bass pattern. That's exact pattern that upright bass player will use without open strings. And to take something I learned from John Schofield, not personally, but in an interview I read, as soon as you learn a scale, start to improvise with it. Get a feel for it. Be able to see this pattern in your head. Next scale is the E-flat mixolydian mode. Same pattern. So that's a pattern that you should have in your head. Then there's the C Dorian. F mixolydian, where you want to play. you have to know as many scale fingers as you can to learn this. And I don't want to set up diagrams during this and show you do it that way. If you want to contact me, I could show you that stuff. That stuff's in Emmett's books. It's in Greg's books. It's in Steve Adelson's books. There's a lot of resources out there to show you this stuff. I just want to kind of I want to get you to the golden nugget that I want to give you about what I do. Okay, so you have those scales and you're playing. When you're playing a walking bass line, there's all these books that give you rules. Play the root on the first beat, play a chord tone on the third beat. That's all good stuff. But if you go and transcribe what people do, and you need to do that, you need to transcribe bass players, those rules are broken constantly. Matter of fact, some of the coolest stuff is whenever you're breaking those rules because you're creating a little bit of tension, okay? So, yeah, the piano player, the guitar player, the saxophone player is going to appreciate it when you're doing a lot of roots, but you don't want to just do roots. That's boring. It's not very musical. So sometimes you want to start on the root. Sometimes you want to start on the third. Sometimes you want to start on the flat seven while you're doing your bass line. And that's true for all the chords, all the scales. You want to not just do roots. Yes, roots, more roots than anything else when you're on the starting note, but not always. You want to do things. Sometimes you're gonna be starting a chord on a ninth. This is one of the most common walking bass lines ever for a blues. It's where you play. Oh, I forget. This does not have the extra fret. So let me do it this way. A really common jazz bass line, and that comes right from the upright bass, playing the open strings and walking right up chromatically. So rules are meant to be broken. The way I think about it is this: the first thing I try to do is I try to get the scale in my head, okay, and get that here. So B flat next to it. And here's the golden nugget, and this should appear on the screen soon. In your mind's eye, and then eventually your mind's ear. So what I'm doing as I'm soloing is I'm actually, one little part of my brain is seeing this pattern, and it's ingrained in there. I'm actually seeing this pattern in a little corner of my brain. You can't think of two things at once that are complete conversations. If you try to go in your head and you try to have two conversations at once, go ahead and try it. If you can do it, let me know. I find it to be impossible. Just have complete 100% focus on both lines at the same time is next to impossible. However, you don't have to be caught in the thing where you've got this pattern. Eventually you want to spread out and you want to be able to see the entire scale as a little background in your mind. And practice transcribing walking bass lines, and you will eventually get to the point where your mind starts to open up more and more, and you start to be able to. It starts to be pliable. You're able to move while you're thinking about soloing. You're also thinking about what's going on in the left hand in the walking, and it really comes around. The first thing you want to do though is you want to. So that's big. The mind's eye. You've got to have your scale patterns in your mind's eye, and you have to practice them. And you have to practice them with scale patterns on the right hand. So scale pattern on the right hand. You again. Get some independence in one position and then move on to other positions. That's my recommendation. When I started playing, the first thing I wanted to walk and I wanted to solo. And the first thing I discovered was my hands didn't want to think on their own. Okay? They didn't want to be independent. So what I had to do was say, well, okay, well, what am I doing? I'm playing quarter notes in the left hand, and I want to play melodies in the right hand. So I'd find a pattern like this, and I'd play the scale. It's not that easy. I think skating over the top and just playing crazy is easier than really setting down a groove. Okay, as Rufus Reed said in his book, The Evolving Bassist, you want to play more doom and less do. You don't want to play doom. Every time you play another note in a walking bass line, it could be the same note. It could be the same note a lot, and that's a really cool technique. So don't go away from that. Okay, so what I did first was I took a mode. And I played this on bass line until it was unconscious. So I was kind of in my mind, I was seeing this pattern. And then you want to be able to start to say, okay, well, what can I do to improvise? Well, just playing in one place for a chord, and you want to be able to see the entire scale. And that's where this inner eye playing quarter notes in the left hand, eighth notes in the right hand, both B flat mixolydian. So something like that. Try that again. Stuff like that. Okay, really get that down. And then you want to, again, the John Scofield thing, you want to start mixing it up. Both hands. The key there was you got to do a lot of practicing with a lot of scales. You've got to add in right hand scales and eighth notes, quarter notes, triplets, all that stuff while you're practicing your left side scales. I think in terms of scales on the left side with approach notes and chromaticism. Right side, I think of in terms of arpeggio more than anything. Okay, if I'm playing a 2-5-1. I'm thinking about those notes, and I've practiced them a lot, all over the neck, so I know where they are. You've got to go and do that stuff. Then you got to transcribe solos that you dig, and you got to find out what they're doing. You know, maybe they're playing. One cool thing is a B flat 7, flat 9. Think of them as paints on your little palette that you're going to paint with, and the more information you've got, the better. So learn licks, learn how to play the arpeggios, practice independence, and don't expect it to come right away. You've got to get the inner eye with the left hand. It's just endless what you can do once you get started. So, in review, I'm a teacher, so I have to do the closure here. I don't want to get too much. I don't want to make this video too long. So, the big aha moment, eureka moment for I hope for you is that I have in my mind's eye a little bit to the left. I think that's where it goes. I am seeing my left hand bass scale patterns. I try to keep those in my head. I've practiced them so much they're in there. Not unmovable patterns, scale patterns. Right for bass solo. Get to the point where you have a little picture in your mind as you're playing, and you can manipulate that picture, and then you're going to be able to start to have some independence. But it takes a lot of exercise, a lot of things I can show you, and I think I'll come back with another tune next time, maybe Stella, maybe all the things you are, Autumn Leaves, something. We'll find a standard, and I'll come back and we'll show you the different scales for that and different things. So give me some feedback, jazzstick@sbcglobal.net. Let me know what you think. What did I miss? What could I go into more detail? Would you like more diagrams and stuff of the scales, or can you get that stuff on your own? The Chapman Stick is an instrument which most people come to after already of playing music. So a lot of theory is already down, but not for everybody. So if I went too fast or I need to diagram stuff, please let me know. I'm new at this. And I'll try to put one more time down below, somewhere around over here. I'll put my email address if you're interested in Skype lessons or one-on-one lessons if you're in the Connecticut area. And hope to see you soon. I hope you enjoyed the first installment of my video series, Jazzstick.